Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Speaker, it is a great privilege for me to yield 5 minutes to a fellow member of the Joint Economic Committee, the distinguished gentleman from Texas, Mr. Paul.
Gentleman from Texas.
Thank you for yielding me the time. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection.
I appreciate very much this opportunity to talk about the budget. You know, in listening to the debate today on both sides of the aisle, there's been a lot of expression of concern about the deficit. And, of course, I'm very concerned about the deficit as well. But I would like to make a suggestion that we're not facing primarily a budgetary crisis or a budgetary problem. I see this more as a philosophic problem, dealing more with the philosophy of government rather than thinking that we can tinker with the budget, deal with this as a tactical problem when really it's a strategic problem. So as long as we endorse the type of government that we have and there's a willingness for the people and as well as the Congress to finance it, we're going to continue with this process, and the frustrations are going to grow because it's just not likely that these deficits will shrink. And the gentleman from Pennsylvania rightly pointed out the concerns that this might have in the financial markets. I'm hoping that his optimism pans out because, indeed, if they don't, there could be some ramifications from these expanding deficits and what it means to our dollar. But I would like to suggest that dealing with the budget itself, I see only one problem that we have, and that problem to me is the budget is too big. And I'd like to shrink the budget. I've toyed with the ideas over the years to introduce and offer a constitutional budget to the House floor. Now, that wouldn't be too difficult because the budget would be so much smaller. It would mean essentially that if you're a strict constitutionalist that you would cut the budget approximately 80%. And what would that mean to the economy? Well, it would be a boost because you would be injected $2 trillion back into the economy, allowing the people to spend their own money. But being pretty realistic, I know that's not likely to happen or be offered or even be able to present that on the House floor. Besides, it could be rather embarrassing to bring something like that to the floor. Not so much embarrassing to me because I'm accustomed to voting in a small group of people on many occasions, but it could be embarrassing to others because for the most part most members would not even conceive of the idea of having a strict interpretation of the Constitution and severely limiting the budget. So we wouldn't want to put everybody on record for that. But you know, the other day I heard an interview with one of our members, and he was asked about a particular program, about where the authority came from in the Constitution for that program. And his answer was very straightforward, and he explained that in the Constitution there was no prohibition against that program, so therefore it was permitted. In his mind, as it is in the minds of many members of Congress, that if there's no strict prohibition, it is permitted. And that is just absolutely opposite of what was intended by the authors of the Constitution, that we would only be able to do those things which are explicitly permitted in the Congress. And they're spelled out rather clearly in Article 1, Section 8. And then we are given the permission to write the laws that are necessary and proper to implement those powers that are delegated to us. Those powers that are not delegated are reserved to the states and to the people. So it doesn't mean that, it means that those things that are not prohibited are permitted, but I would say that the conventional wisdom today is that people accept the notion that we can do anything that we want as long as it's not prohibited by the Constitution. I think this improper understanding and following of the Constitution has brought us closer to a major crisis in this country, a crisis of our personal liberties, a crisis in our foreign policy, as well as a crisis in our budgeting. But it isn't simply the ignoring of the Constitution that I think is our problem. I think our other problem is that our country and our people and our Congresses and our senators have accepted the notion of faith in government, faith in the state, that the state can provide these great services and do it efficiently. You know, really, there's only two areas that would have to be cut if we were to strive for a constitutional budget. There's only two things that we would have to cut, and that would be welfare and warfare. And then we would get back to some fundamentals. Do you have any other time?
I will yield the gentleman an additional 2 minutes.
I thank the gentleman. You know, during World War I, a gentleman by the name of Randolph Bourne wrote a pamphlet called War is the Health of the State. And I truly believe that. When we're at war, we're more likely to sacrifice our liberties, and of course, we spend more money than we really have. I would like to suggest to Corley that peace is the foundation of liberty, because that is what the goal of all governments should be, is the preservation of liberty. We have endorsed a program where, with this interpretation, that spending is going to be endlessly increased. And we have devised a system whereby we have ignored the constraints through monetary policy by not only are we taxing too much and borrowing too much, we have now, since 1971, endorsed a monetary system that if you come up short, you just print the money. And I would suggest to the gentlelady that one of the reasons why the workers' purchasing power is going down is we print too many dollars, and they are the ones who are most likely and first to suffer from inflation. And it is the philosophy of government and our philosophy on money that encourages these problems. And with this current account deficits and this huge foreign indebtedness that is encouraged by our ability to maintain a reserve currency, is going to lead to a crisis where this spending will have to come in check. And that is why the gentleman from Pennsylvania is quite correct that we should be concerned about how the financial markets look at what we do. And hopefully we will be able to deal with this in a budgetary way and institute some restraints. But quite frankly, I'm a bit pessimistic about that. This program that we follow and this philosophy we followed prompted our Federal Reserve to create $620 billion in order to finance a system. That is the reason that the dollar becomes less valuable, because we just print too many to accommodate the politicians and the people who enjoy the excessive spending. And I yield back.
Gentlelady from New York.